many strange things happen around here. He was a farmer, wife and 2 children. We used to live in that old house behind those trees. For no apparent reason, we'd stark, raving mad. He walked into his bedroom. The bodies of his wife and children have never been found. And if he hears you call his name, he'll come for you.
Come and get us, Madman!
Welcome to episode 27 of Flashback Horror Movie Podcast. We played you the trailer there for Madman. I know there wasn't a lot of information in there, only because it's a very visual trailer, and I couldn't find a radio trailer for it, but I think you get the gist. Here I am with my co-host, John Grande, Triple P. The P's stand for Pajama and Pants and Playa. What's going on, John?
Nothing much, my good sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a beautiful Friday. I know I don't know about what it's like there in New York, man, but the weather here is absolutely crazy hot.
Yes, it's been really bad. I mean, the last couple of days it's been humid, but today it's kind of beautiful outside.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it. It's a good, cool, 72. But the last 3 days have been 81, 82. It's bad, man.
Check this out. Hot. This is probably what you got to look forward to today. Here in Ohio, it's not the desert, but it was 90 here yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, isn't that crazy? But anyways, we'll take it. It's going to be cold enough soon,
Yeah, absolutely. It's weird. I feel like summer kind of came late, so I'm guessing, autumn and fall is going to basically come late, and then I don't think winter will hit us probably till late January.
Yeah, that's what I got my fingers crossed. So today we're going to talk about Madman from 1981. But before we do that, I know you actually went out and saw a movie last night. We haven't really talked about it. What did you see?
I actually took the privilege. My mother came home from work and was asking me, we haven't had a night to ourselves in a long time. I had the night off because the Jewish holiday. I did have to go to school.
Sure.
But she was like, would you want to do something, the two of us? We're the only two home. And I said, yeah, you want to go see a movie? And she said, yeah, sure, what's playing? And I said, well, there's a movie called Mother with Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem that's playing. So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I saw Mother with my mother last night.
Nice. So what'd you think, man? Tell us about it. I know I'm pretty curious to find out, what your thoughts are.
Well, to be honest with you, I really enjoyed the movie. Cool. I thought it was one of those movies that was just really claustrophobic and really unsettling. And I wouldn't give it the brand name of straight up horror, but it's certainly dramatic horror.
Okay.
It's exactly. And I think both lead actors do an absolute fantastic job. I mean, those two were as good as advertised. And you've got a really good cast. I can give a little summation of the plot. I won't ruin anything for anybody worried about spoilers.
Do that, please.
So basically, Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence are a married couple, and they're pretty much living out in this like vacation home. And Javier Bardem is this poet, and he's suffering serious writer's block.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I know already this kind of sounds like The Shining.
Right.
And there's no kid though that talks to himself or anything. So I assure you that. But
right.
They're out in the middle of nowhere, and basically one night they get a knock at the door, and it's Ed Harris. And he says, I thought this was a bed and breakfast. I'm sorry. And Javier Bardem pretty much tells him who he is, and he goes, "Oh wow, that's so cool! I know who you are. You're a great poet. That's so cool that I stumbled upon you guys like this." And then Javier Bardem pretty much says, "Why don't you guys stay the night? Why don't you stay the night, Mr. Harris?" And he's like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And then the next day, Michelle Pfeiffer shows up at this place.
Damn.
And she's Ed Harris's wife. And then, dude, I swear to God, it's just insanity ensues. It just keeps getting weirder and weirder. And I've read a lot of interpretations as to what the movie is trying to say, trying to mean. And dude, it is absolutely like an acid trip of a film.
Really? One of those.
And they go, dude, for a theatrical film, they do some crazy ass shit. Like I could tell you off the air if you want to know, but I honestly would recommend seeing it. I've heard my mother hated it, and I know my mother's friends went to see it the night before us.
Right.
And they hated it too. Really? So I've heard a lot of, bad things, I guess.
Right.
But I'll be honest with you. I thought it was a solid 7 out of 10, man. I thought it was a really good flick, really well acted, and really well directed by Darren Aronofsky.
Cool. It sounds like it's a very individual film. You know what I mean? You either love it or you hate it, and it makes you think, it sounds like.
It does. There's a lot of ways you can interpret it. I interpreted it very different from what I read online.
Gotcha.
They went a route that I didn't even think of, but I don't know. I could totally see what they were saying. But if you do see the movie, we'll definitely talk about it more, because I thought it was a very interesting film, and I really did enjoy going to see it. It was a cool watch for sure.
Cool. Yeah, maybe I can get the old lady to go out and watch that with me, which doesn't happen very often with horror.
I will recommend this. I wouldn't bring anybody that you. It's there's got some crazy scenes in it. I will say that.
I gotcha. And
that's coming from someone who loves Cannibal Holocaust. So.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. Well, cool, man. Anything else? You get a chance to watch anything else this week? Any Blu-ray, any slashers, any other, other than what we're talking about tonight? I know you watch Madman, but
no, actually, I was working all week. I was very busy this week, but at work one night, I came in, and it was a really quiet, stale night, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna throw Madman on right now.
Nice.
I was gonna wait till I got home, but I was like, you know what? It's 10 o'clock. I'm feeling the atmosphere. I was like, I'm just gonna throw it up, and I got pretty much lost with the Madman and the stars. So
well, cool. Well, I know. Your memory of this movie in the past. It isn't one of your favorites. Not that you hated it, but it's in the canon of slasher films, it wasn't one that you enjoyed. Did you? What did you think? How many ever time around you've seen it? Did you like it a little more?
Madman's a film that I guess we'll go into our origins of these movies, because I know you have a little bit of a background where you said you saw this at the perfect time, and I'm interested to hear that story. But I guess I'll go because mine's going to be a little bit strayed. I'm a big fan of deadpit.com.
Gotcha.
Huge fan. I listened to their show, from probably 2009 till it went off the air.
Right.
I was just a huge fan, and they were always putting over this little slasher film directed by Joe Giannone called Madman, and I always was like, man, they really are putting this movie over, and I really want to see it. It sounds really cool, this madman in the woods, this killer. If you say his name above a whisper, he comes to get you, and I was hooked. I was like, I got to see this movie. So finally, I don't know what year it was, but the Code Red release of Madman came out.
Right.
And I snagged it. I was like, I got to see this movie. Pre-ordered it, got it, and I put it in, and I watched it alone. It was like 11 o'clock, or maybe closer to midnight.
Right.
And I kind of isolated myself. I tried to set the atmosphere because I was really excited,
Yeah.
And to be honest, I kind of was like, at the end of it, I was kind of left scratching my head a bit. I was like, well, I enjoyed it, but one of the greatest slashers ever. I was like, I don't know about that.
Right.
However, there are so many people that are so gung-ho for this movie.
Yeah.
And I honestly, to this day, am not as positive as to why, because I've heard people say that this is a way better film than The Burning, and I've heard people say it's a better film than Friday the 13th.
Oh, my.
And, like, when I hear that, I completely am like, I don't agree.
Right.
But, you know,
Right.
everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm not saying that they're wrong. But this past time watching it, this is the third time I've watched the film. I actually did not watch my Code Red version. I watched the original Anchor Bay transfer online. I found a copy of it, so it wasn't auto color corrected like the Code Red DVD was. And I think that really hurt the atmosphere of the movie, because that color correction, it took that awesome bluish atmosphere and turned it like almost shitty orange. And like, it just doesn't work for that kind of a movie. I think that blue tint really works. And it's a movie on rewatch, man. The cinematography in this movie is very well done, and I think the storytelling is very well done. But tell me about your kind of origins with this movie, because I know you said you have such fond memories and a good watch. So,
well,
what are your memories?
I can tell you that when I originally, people have heard the story before about how I saw Friday the 13th at the drive-in and kind of watched around the seats. I was supposed to be sleeping in the back seat and all that good stuff, which brings back great memories for me for Friday the 13th. That's why I love those films. But there was a time period after that where I didn't watch these kind of movies because I literally was 7 years old and it just scared the living daylights out of me. So I wasn't allowed to watch. I slept next to my mom's bed for like 3 months, bro. You know what I mean, on the floor. So yeah,
we've all been there.
Yeah. So my mom's like, you ain't watching that anymore. So anyways, there was a long period of time between when I saw that and when I saw another slasher film. And I can tell you that this was probably, and I can't say for sure, but probably the first slasher film I saw after seeing Friday the 13th. And that's why it holds such a place in my heart. Now, do I think that this movie is better than Friday the 13th or better than even The Burning? No. I mean, I personally would put it, maybe on the same level as The Burning or somewhere near there. But Friday the 13th, Halloween, things like that, absolutely, I don't think it's anywhere near those. Either, movie make wise or, in my memory. But I do have a soft spot for this movie in particular because I believe that it was the first thing I saw after I saw Friday the 13th. So that's part of the big reason that I like this movie. What I can say about this movie is that it is nowhere near as good as the people who say it's the best thing ever, but it's nowhere near as bad as people say it is. I can tell you that this character, one thing about this character that I really noticed, the Madman character, was he wasn't similar to any other slasher that I remember back then. There was no, there was a lot of grunting. And you know what I mean? Usually they're either a regular person or they're this killing machine like Jason or like Michael Myers where they don't say anything at all. Or they're just this regular person dressed up. This character, didn't you feel it was a little, I don't know, it just made it feel a little different. How do you feel?
I feel like it almost felt like he was a wild animal.
Right, that's exactly what I thought. That's exactly how I felt. That's a good way to put it. But I just felt like it wasn't really. I don't know. I don't. Like I said, this is definitely a slasher film, but it's a different slasher film than what we were used to, especially back then. What did you think about the campfire? Did you like the campfire scene?
Now, once again, we're not going to sound like broken records. As I've seen better in other films, everyone knows I'm a big John Fury mark,
sure.
But. This, I think it's done well to the point where I think the guy telling the story is good enough.
Yes.
And I think all the people around the campfire are fine with their expressions. But they add these little, like, I don't know if, like, musical, like, beeps or whatnot. Like, it's like, and here he was. And it's like, duh, and then after every sentence it's like, duh, and I'm like, why are you doing that? It's so unneeded.
Right.
And then there's one part where he says he lives over in that old house, and they like cut to a house.
like it's
You know
literally
it's clearly not behind that.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
I remember when I first saw it, I was like, okay, that is dumb. But this past time, I burst out laughing because I kind of forgot.
Yeah.
And then I think Richie throws a rock at the house.
Yeah. Yeah. And you
I
hear
was
it hit.
like, all right, how far did he throw that? You know,
Right.
I don't think Brett Favre could have.
Right.
You know,
Why
reached
is
that
Richie
house.
Why is Richie
But,
not in Major League Baseball?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I will say this too, for a cast, I don't think, and they go around each person at this campfire. I don't think any of them stand out.
No.
In a good way or a bad way.
Sure.
Like, there's no girl in this movie that I say, hottie, fucking 10 out of 10, slut character, I love it.
Right.
No, there's nobody stands out, and I think that maybe is what hurts this movie a little bit for me.
Yeah.
I think, but I do think the legend is great, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, this crazy madman who went crazy one day, killed his wife and kids, and then they all, the villagers hung him, and then the next day he was gone from the tree, and
Right.
its legend says if you say his name above a whisper, he comes to kill you. And
Right.
I thought that is brilliant, man, because that's what
is.
all slasher movies need. They need that
Absolutely.
kind of legend,
Yeah.
backstory,
Yeah.
folktale that gets your skin crawling, and this absolutely does that. I mean, granted, there are like I said, there are some unintentionally like that house that's clearly not behind.
Right. Right.
But you know, if you can get over that, which I can, you know, it's actually quite a disturbing little tale. But what do you think?
Yeah, I have to say that this campfire, you know, the song by TP, Tony Fish, Tony Fish is the guy who played TP. I thought it was pretty, I thought it was pretty well done. You know, I mean, it didn't, I guess they literally only gave the guy like 24 hours to learn the song. But I thought that was really cool. You know, I mean, it didn't talk about the Madman, but legend, but I thought it was pretty good. But when Max, played by a guy named Frederick Newman, starts telling the story, I dug it, man. I thought he did a really good job. Now, I will say that there are times in his performance, because he's not in this movie for very long, where he's not very good. You know what I mean? And
I agree with that.
And I do have to say that most of these performances are not very good.
No, it's definitely a low-end acting.
Yeah, but I feel like he put all of his good stuff into the story. You know, for instance, at the end of the story, he's telling about Madman. He says, "One by one, you'll start to fall. Before the night's over, I'll get you all." You know, and I love that. I thought that was so, I don't know, I just thought it was really, really well done. I don't know if it was just the way, somebody wrote it really well, which... seeing the rest of this movie, you can't imagine that, you know what I mean? That it was that great of writing,
Yes.
You know what I mean? But one of the other thing that I really dug about the story was when they went to the montage of showing Madman killing his family, or Madman Mars killing his family. I thought it was pretty well done. I mean, he chopped somebody in the head. I mean, for a low budget, early slasher movie, I thought it was pretty well done. I mean, they cut it right. It looked good. I don't know. I really like that about this movie. That beginning story, I think, is pretty well done. No
I
fans or
agree.
buts.
I think the scene where he walks into the daughter's bedroom and just whack, and you see all this blood go everywhere.
Yeah.
But I like how they don't show you too much,
Right,
Because
right.
I think it was evident that they ddidn't really have great effects masters.
Yes.
I don't know who did the effects on this film, but they didn't. They did what. I'll do a wrestling relation here. They did what Paul Heyman did with ECW. He knew he didn't have the money to
Right.
compete with the big high organization that was WWE and WCW at the time.
Right.
So he accentuated the negatives and accentuated the positives.
Right.
He said, we can't compete with these effects, so we'll tell a great kick-ass story. And that's
absolutely.
what Joe Giannone does with this film.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think he ever went on to do anything else. He produced a few things, but Joe Giannone never directed another movie. Interesting.
Would you say his direction is? Well, I think the cinematography is really good in this film. But
Yeah.
what would you say about his direction? Did you think he did a stellar job? What were you feeling about that?
Well, I mean, the way. I don't know, man. You only have so much to go with when you're working with people like this, and we're going to get into some of the characters. One, in particular here, but you only had so much to work with, so it's very hard to judge on such a low budget movie with not top notch cast, which is usually the way slasher films are. But I didn't think he did a bad job. I thought it was one of those situations where it was like, that's good enough, let's move on to the next thing. So I didn't think he did a bad job, but I didn't think it was he was no Scorsese or anything like that. What about you? I mean, do you feel differently?
No, I don't. I agree with you. I think it's definitely. I think he does do a good job considering, because I don't think I know that a lot of people say, "Oh, it doesn't matter. Anybody could direct a slasher," and sometimes that is true. Like, I'm not going to say that's completely false, but like, I think guys like Joe Zito,
right?
That's a guy that knows how to make a slasher.
Absolutely.
But there are guys today, the newer filmmakers, that don't know what they're doing. But I think Joe Giannone is good because he really he understood how to build tension, I think. Yeah. And I think the whole movie is shot pretty well. Like I was bothered when I first saw the Code Red, color correction, because I was like, this is not atmospheric at all. It looks like shit to me. Right. And then when I finally watched the kind of blue Anchor Bay, the original release transfer, I was like, this is so much, this is 10 times better, because it's just, you feel that atmosphere more. Sure. You feel like you're more into it. And this actually was I was doing some research. This was shot about 45 minutes from where I live in Southampton. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I saw that. We were looking at research at about the same time. That's pretty cool. I mean, there was obviously a camp there. I wonder if that camp still exists. Do you have any idea? And that's kind of far away.
I think it does. I was watching I fell asleep watching it. This is when I came home from work. I watched the Legend Lives, the 30-man anniversary of Madman. Yeah. And they actually were at the filming location, I believe.
Oh, no kidding.
But I was falling asleep as I was watching it, so I didn't get to see. I think it was like, it looked pretty much the same. Like, they were walking around the woods and like, yeah, this is where we did this and that. And they did mention, the last thing I remember, they say they spray painted the leaves green.
No kidding.
Because it was fall and they wanted it to be taking place in the summer, so they spray painted a lot of the leaves green.
That's like the opposite of Halloween.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah. I was like, that is so, like, why would you even go and, I think it would be fine for it to take place in fall. Like, it wouldn't hurt the movie in any way.
Right. Well, it's supposed to be the end of the summer anyway, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. I said you didn't have to go through that trouble, but I thought it was kind of a cool little, fun fact. That was like, oh, cool. Like, they actually took the time to spray paint the leaves green. That's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, it is. One of the things I wanted to tell you was on the Vinegar Syndrome put out a release of this. It's a double disc with DVD and Blu-ray, and on the extras, and I haven't listened yet, is Dead Pit doing interviews. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, with Joe Giannone, and I believe it's Tom Candela, or maybe it might be Paul Ehlers, the guy who played Madman. I'm not sure, but yeah, they have a couple of interviews on there, which, like I said, I haven't had a chance to listen to yet. But
they got to interview the director. I thought the director passed away.
No. As a matter of fact, he I think he's still alive, to be honest with you, as far as I know. Joe Giannone. Oh, no. What? No.
Yeah, he passed away in 2006.
Oh, man. Maybe it wasn't him then. Maybe it was.
Maybe it was probably the producer. Was it Gary Sales?
Maybe that's who it was. My bad. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But yeah, so there's a couple interviews on there either way. Gary Sales. Let me see if there's a picture of him, and I can tell you. Oh, yeah, it's him. It's Gary Sales.
He kind of looks like Harry Manfredini.
yeah, he does. But yeah, seeing a picture of him, that's exactly who they're talking to. So, but another thing, of the extras on the Blu-ray is you get a chance. There was an interview, and I believe it was the 30th anniversary, because there's a lot of extras on these discs, so it's pretty cool. They actually get a chance to talk to Frederick Newman, who passed away in 2009, and they talk to obviously. Paul Ehlers and Tom Candela, who played Richie, who spent 90% of this movie walking around the woods, which you had brought up to me before, and I paid more attention this time, and I'm like, yeah, he's out in the woods for a long time. But anyways,
no one ever kills him.
Right. Like, that's in every other movie, that's the worst thing you could do is go out and hang out in the woods. It's the best thing in this movie.
Exactly. Like, I thought when I first saw this movie, I was like, during the campfire scene, he goes, "How can they never be found?" I was like, okay. I was like, this guy's getting it first. I know, right? Myself on the back. I was like, I'm so fucking smart.
Right. And he was he
sees the madman in the trees.
Which is awesome, by the way.
Oh my
love
God,
that.
great shot.
Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely great shot, man. One of probably the best shot of this film.
Yeah, very,
Like
very.
probably partially the reason why I love the cinematography a lot in this movie.
Yep.
But I love that scene, and then he kind of stares him down. They're like staring at each other,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, he's gonna, go wander, and then Madman's gonna get him, and then the killing spree's on because he
Right.
provoked the Madman. But that doesn't happen, and I was kind of like, like the Richie character is, and Richie character keeps seeing Madman run in and out of his house, and like,
Right.
what
You know, that character reminded me of Ned from the original Friday the 13th, kind of the Joker, you know what I'm saying? That's the kind of character he is.
Yeah, he
and
had
usually
the Dolphins uniform on.
Right. So usually in movies, that character definitely dies, except for in like Cabin in the Woods. You know what I mean? That character is usually one of the first ones to go, but he makes it through this movie. But yeah, I love that scene. I thought that scene was really, really well done. It was pretty scary. But you said, they stared at each other for a while, and what do they say, about silverback gorillas? You never stare at them. It sends them into a rage, I guess. And so you think, this guy's dead. He's going to be gone very soon. But he makes it through the whole damn thing, which I thought was pretty cool. But what did you think about that old house? I thought that old house. I mean, there are a lot of things in this movie that are different about slashers, and some things that are very, very common in slasher movies. And the house is kind of one of them. What'd you think?
I thought it was a really cool house and location,
Yeah.
man. I thought it was like uber creepy. Like I thought it was even better than the house from The Changeling with George C. Scott, and that's
yeah.
a great little haunted house movie. But I thought this house was just super, like, it was perfect, man.
Did it remind you of the house in It a little bit when you rewatched it? That's kind of how I looked at it. The house in It, the new It remake. I thought,
New It.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say I was like the original. I was
What
trying
house?
to think of the original It. I was like a house. I was like,
Right. Right.
Yeah, I
Something
think
like
so.
that.
I think what the difference was the blue lighting. It
Right.
was just, it made it creepier.
I agree.
Whereas the new It, I think they go in the middle of the day. They're in this house.
Yeah. Yep.
And
yeah.
like, I don't think that atmosphere drove home as good as it does in this film, because it's all takes place at night, which is a really good. I think that's a great thing for a slasher movie, because I know a lot of people complain that the burning takes place, a lot of it during the day.
Right. Right.
But I think that's why the burning is so. I don't know what it is. I think it's a more polished slasher film, but that's why
Right.
I kind of like it.
Sure.
Like that rap scene, if you put that on paper, you're kind of scratching your head. You're like, so the greatest slasher scene happens in broad daylight? You're
Right.
like,
No, you're absolutely. Yeah.
but it's just the way it's done. It's just so
Yeah.
masterfully perfected of a shot, and of course Savini's effects. But
Sure.
I think this movie it really helps that it takes place at night primarily, because it gives that different feel, and the atmosphere is there for sure.
Right. Not to mention they didn't have the, I don't know. It's better that it takes place at night because they didn't have the money to do anything during they didn't want great lighting. Let's just put it that way.
Exactly.
Especially when you see the effects on Mars, which I didn't think were horrible, but I mean, you could tell he had fake hands, rubber hands and rubber feet. You know what I mean?
I thought those were pretty bad.
Yeah,
Actually.
yeah, I did too. So it's probably better that they didn't have great lighting. Do you want to talk about the characters a little bit? Do you want to start with the obvious one?
Our favorite,
Alexis Dubin.
Yeah, Mrs. Dubin,
Yeah.
Miss Idiot Dubin.
Yeah, her real name's Galen Ross. Obviously, anybody who doesn't know that, Galen Ross was one of the main characters in Dawn of the Dead. What did you? What did you think, man? I mean, if you leave out what we know about her, what did you think about her performance?
I thought she kind of did a bad job. To
I
be
did
honest.
too, man. I totally agree. How do you get worse after acting? You know what I mean? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, she did a decent job in Dawn of the Dead. I thought her acting got worse. I thought she didn't look as good. And not that she was all that great looking anyways, but, whatever. But I think her look slipped a little bit, but, and that could have been makeup and all that stuff too. But, yeah, I didn't think she did very good. In that 3 years between these two movies, I don't know what happened. Did she fall and hit her head?
I don't know. I think she fell and hit her head after this movie for sure, because she for some reason, and I don't know the answer as to why.
I don't either.
But she disowns this movie.
I know.
And will not. I know she refuses to sign shit. I think she refused you, didn't she?
Yes, she did. I went to the Days of the Dead convention this past summer in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I waited because I had heard, you had talked about how she wouldn't sign anything or didn't kind of recognize this movie. So I kind of waited until there was nobody around her table. And that, I have to say something, that really says something to me right there, because there wasn't a lot of people around her table. So, no offense, whatever, Galen, but I'm just telling you. So I walked up when no one was there, and I said, hey, is there any chance I could get you to sign my Madman Blu-ray? And she said no. That was it. And I stood there for a second, wide-eyed at her reaction, and she said, no offense, but no. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. I was like, phew, okay. Well, I mean, and what's frustrating is I've always been a fan of this movie. I've always told people that I love this movie. I've always pushed people to watch it. And then, the quote-unquote star of this movie doesn't want to have anything to do with it. It's kind of a letdown. Now, it doesn't change my opinion of the movie. I still enjoy it. But I do kind of look at her a little bit more critically when I watch this movie, that's for sure. But, it is what it is. You know what I mean? I mean, you would figure, I would hope that when I'm close to 70 years old, I would be able to let go of all those hang-ups that I have about the things that I've done in the past, you know what I mean? But, of course, I'm not famous and I've never acted, and, but it is what it is, I mean.
It's one of 3 movies that anyone would ever know her from.
Exactly.
Like Dawn of the Dead, Creepshow, and this movie.
Yeah.
I don't get, but she changed her name, so she must have been not on board with it from the word go, pretty much, because if she had her name changed in the film, she probably was not wanting to be credited for it, obviously. So I don't know. She probably just hated the movie.
Yeah, and you said something to me before I went to the convention that I thought was pretty interesting, and man, it really rang true. And not that she's a hero of mine, but you said to me, that somebody told you at one time it's better to not meet your heroes sometimes. And that's true, you know what I mean? Because it taints your vision, you know what I mean, of them, and that sucks because we're both big Dawn of the Dead fans, you know what I mean? So it's hard not to think about that, that interaction when I see that movie as much as I love it, so. But anyways, so we can move on from her. Do you have anything else you wanted to say about her?
No, I do. I agree with you, though. I think very bottom of the barrel kind of, I don't even know if you call her a final girl, but yeah, I thought she did a bad job.
So what did you think about the hot tub scene between her and Tony Fish? TP?
Oh, the infamous hot tub scene.
Oh my goodness.
I will say this though. This is my only problem with that scene is it happens too early in the film.
There you go. Yeah, I agree. It
bothers me because it would be so perfect if it happened like toward like two-thirds of the way in or 3/4 of the way in, and like it sets up for that kill, how they basically did it in Halloween 2. It's basically 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the movie when they do that hot tub scene. Yep. But that is not as epic as this. Right.
So anybody who's interested, there's a very quick glance of her naked. So if that, if you're into that, if you watch movies for that in particular, just a real quick glance. But her and actually him too. I mean, you get to see his rear end if you're a girl and into that.
Which is never good.
Right. Well, right. Yeah. But yeah. So anyways, they get in a hot tub, and the music during this scene is so right out of the 70s, man. It is. And I got to be honest with you, it's worth seeing this scene just for the music, in my opinion. It is so typical, just right out of the 70s. And
I 100% agree.
It's so funny. But they, the blocking in this, how they kind of twirl around in a circle. It is so odd. It's like the worst synchronized swimming you've ever seen in your life in the Olympics. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, absolutely.
What I mean? It is so funny. Only part of their hair gets wet. It's just so weird and awkward. And there's a couple times where they kiss in the scene, and you could tell they're not super comfortable with each other. And the guy who played TP, named Tony Fish, I didn't think he was bad, but and I don't know anything about him. I know he's passed away, but he seemed. I thought. Every time I watch this movie, I think he's gay. You know what I mean? So it's weird. You know what I mean? It's weird to see him interacting like this with a woman. You know what I mean? So and I don't know if he was gay. And I don't have don't take any offense. I don't have anything against gay people, but it just didn't seem to work. You know what I mean? So I thought that was weird. Like at one point, she goes to give him a kiss, and he turns his cheek. he turns his cheek to her, and I thought, man, that is just the most awkward scene. So there's a lot about this scene that is worth watching. There's a ton of stuff, whether it be the music, the quote unquote choreography, or just the awkwardness between the two characters. Do you agree?
What I think is so funny about this scene is that I think it's trying to be really like a seriously like dramatic kind of,
Right.
you know, and then it just comes off as so unintentionally so, hilarious.
Yeah, so
you know, it makes me smile just thinking about how fucking, and the music, the song,
oh my
it's like
gosh.
every like last line of every every last word of every two lines is like extended and it's really awkward. It's like you
Right.
It's so bad, and they're like circling each other, and I was at my desk at my job hysterically laughing.
Right.
It's just such a hilariously awesome scene, man. I really do enjoy it, and I honestly, like, if there's ever a remake of this film,
Mm-hmm.
please, whoever makes it, please put this scene towards the end and have Madman like bust into the room or something, because like I always thought that would have been really effective had you know, he just interrupted this.
Oh, I know, right? Well, you know, that's another thing too. Is usually a scene like this is interrupted.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If you think about the hot tub scene in Halloween 2, for instance.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, you know, that's a really, you know, and it works, you know what I mean? Where, you know, it works where they die in that scene. But these two characters, I think are probably 1 and 2, don't you think? I mean, they get the top 2 billings, but the thing that I thought was weird, and we'll talk about it in a minute, is TP died too soon in this movie, I think. Do you agree with that?
I think so too. I think this movie, while it, like you said, I think there's a lot of things it does just like every other slasher. There's a lot of things where it's like, like why would you go this route, you know? And it's there's some certain things that still leave me scratching my head.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a scene later we'll talk about a certain hiding place that again I nearly died of laughter in my chair.
Right.
But you know, yeah, I don't get why he died so early. But I will say this: I think that scene was really well done, and the effects on his face were really good.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, well, yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. One of the next thing, you go from this funny, unintentionally funny scene to another. What I find is hilarious, I don't know about you, is where the other counselors are laying head by head. You know, they're laying on the ground head to head, shoulder to shoulder. And I'm assuming they're high. Did you assume that?
No, I actually didn't.
No, because I thought what they were talking
terrible actors.
Well, maybe that's what it was. Maybe they were really high. And,
yeah, it's possible.
But, you know, that they were trying to be, I'm sure Joe Giannone was trying to be artistic. You know what I mean? Where it shows them what it is one guy's laying his body to the left, and the next girl is laying with her ear right next to his ear with her body to the right, and there's 4 of them, and it goes back and forth like that. And it's just, it's so, I don't know, it's like very awkward and weird. Not to say that it doesn't, you know, I mean, it's okay. That's why I thought they were high, because I just thought it was so weird that they're doing that. You know what I mean? But you know, they're talking about what, you know, important things like, you know, the way people are and how they can be different than what you expected them to be, and you know, those kind of things. And the guy, again, I don't remember the guy's name. Do you remember that character's name? Is it Dave, where he jumps up and grabs a knife? And he's like, you don't know anything about
I know
me.
he has a hilarious, like one of those kind of hilarious 70s kind of porn star looks,
Right.
where I thought I started laughing. Also, what we didn't mention is a great scene before this is with the cook.
Oh,
Dippy.
yeah, I missed it. Dippy. His name's Dippy. Yeah, wow.
Drunk cook named Dippy, who's in the movie for literally less than a minute. He comes out with like a bottle of Jack Daniels. It's like maybe half gone, and then like they cut to it. It's like a few seconds later, and it's all gone. And then Dippy like walks over and just randomly is the first person killed.
Yeah, he's the first. Well, you know, they do an interview with him on the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray also, and he says that he just got a call one day and said, "Hey, we need somebody to die. Can you come up here and die?" So that's all he was there for, was to be the first death.
I watched that interview too. I felt like he was almost drunk in the interview.
I thought so too. That's funny. Like, that's the real dude. I wonder if his real name is Dippy. No, what is his real name? It's Michael Sullivan.
I wish his real name was Dippy.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Awesome.
That'd be incredible. But so yeah, that was a funny scene, and like you said, I think that scene's funnier because I saw that interview. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because you know how that
it hits home. Like I was just like, is this guy just drunk all the time? Like, was he really acting? That they just like, ask him to come from his house while he was drunk, and they were like, here's some Jack Daniels. Right. Like, don't mind if I do.
Right. Well, I wonder if that's how they paid him in Jack Daniels. But I kept thinking too, because I've seen the interviews with Paul Ehlers. Is it Ehlers or is it Ehlers? I don't know how to say
Ehlers.
it. Well, I thought, are these guys related? Because they both kind of
well, they definitely could be.
I mean, they look a little disheveled.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they're both kind of disheveled looking people. It's kind of true.
But anyway, so yeah, I totally forgot about that. So yeah, you get to see that first death, and I don't think it's a bad scene. You know what I mean? I thought the death was pretty good, although there wasn't a whole lot, not that they always give reasons behind all these killings, but there wasn't any real reason. It's not like he was intruding on his home or anything like that, which obviously is no big deal to him because Richie lives through the whole thing. But yeah, that was pretty interesting. So
I like the whole axe thing too, where there's this axe that nobody can pull it out of this tree stump. That's super slasher trope.
Yeah,
that's like when Friday the 13th, when the girl is setting up the archery range and the guy shoots one, she goes, "You almost killed me, you crazy!" He goes, "You want to see my trick shot?" And he's got like, but as a fan and as watching, you go, they're going to go back to that. Something's going to happen at that archery range. And it's the same thing here with this axe. You go, someone's going to get it with that axe, and of course they go back to it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the reverse Excalibur thing, right? Where, the sword and the stone or whatever, where only the person pure of heart can remove the sword from the stone and all that good stuff. And this is the opposite. Only somebody as nasty and mean and, evil as Madman can pull it out. I thought that, I love that part too. And I think that, there are only a few things in this movie that set it apart, I think, from other slasher movies. And that's one of them. I really like that a lot. I thought that really worked in this movie for sure.
I agree.
What else did I want to talk about? Oh, the little mousy girl, I think her name's Ellie in this movie.
Oh my God, she was a mouse, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Worst actor in this movie.
Yeah, oh yeah. She reminded me of, what's her name? Kate Micucci from Garfunkel and Oates. She was on like Big Bang Theory, and you know who I'm talking about? Every time I see her, that's who I think of. But I think she looks just like her. I was like, man, I bet that's her mom. But it's not.
I was like, I couldn't believe how bad of an actress she was. Like, she literally looked like a deer caught in the headlights permanently.
Right.
Like, her whole expression is just like, I don't think she blinks once in this entire movie.
Right.
But she just has her mouth wide open. She totally has a rat face, man.
Yeah.
Really, really, really bad actor.
Yeah.
And I mean, and terrible looker too. Like, complete, 0 out of 0.
Right. And I kept thinking maybe she's related to Joe Giannone. Maybe she, what she got on.
The casting with this movie, I thought the people in The Burning, I didn't think there were that many, but compared to this movie, the people in The Burning are like supermodels. It's kind of true. It's like,
I agree.
There's nobody that stands out. I think that's one of my biggest detractors from this movie is that the cast is very stale and plain. Like, there's nothing, there's no arc to the cast. They're just all kind of generic. Right. And I think in a slasher movie, I think that's actually a really big negative. That will a lot of people go, "Oh, you're a hypocrite. You say don't judge the acting." And I'm not really judging the acting. I think it's just actually the look of the actors. Like, we all want that hot blonde with fucking big titties. Like, it's the facts of life.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, it's like, if you have a checklist, right? I mean, and there's 5 things on it. This only has 4. You know what I mean? For the slasher movies, and you're absolutely right. That is usually. I mean, these movies are made for who? 18 to 35-year-old males, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's missing. So yeah, and maybe that's part of the reason it gets the hate that it does. You know what I mean? Is because it's not there. I mean, listen, let's be real with each other and with our with our fans and our listeners. Is we all that's what we look, I mean, as young people, when we see those movies, that's what we're looking for. I can't wait till the next scene with Terry from Friday the 13th Part 2, or whoever, Amy Steele, or, I mean, not that either of those had big hooters or anything, but
well,
part
of it. I mean, it's that's part of the reason we like these movies. Right. I mean, you have great kills, you have great effects, you've got great looking women, you've got quick movies with funny dialogue and a cool killer,
Yep.
Like there's so many things that are appealing, but it's funny because I don't think this movie has the greatest effects either.
No.
There are certain scenes where they're good, but it's weird because, I think the main three ingredients for a good slasher is boobs, blood, and mayhem.
Right.
And to be honest, it doesn't have boobs really, other than maybe, I guess, Alexis Dubin.
Yeah, literally for what? A half a second?
Yeah, half a second. And then, the blood, there is some blood, but it's not like the Tom Savini level of effects. But then again, I actually kind of wish Savini had worked on this movie too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it seems like what they had to, and this is what I was thinking as I was watching it, is they had to say, look, where do we want to spend our our effects budget, you know what I mean? And the other ones, they just said, we're just going to have to wing it here, you know what I mean? Put milk cartons on his feet and make him look like, not that it was that bad, but you know where I'm coming from. They had to say, look, we don't have it, we want to rip somebody's throat out. We got to put some money into that. We have to cut somebody's head off. We have to do that. But I think that's probably the only reason, that this movie isn't, up there effects wise as the other ones. And listen, don't get me wrong, all the other movies had to do that too, but they just had better special effects people. Like you said, if Savini would have done this, he probably could have done a much better job.
Totally. And I think it's a movie that even without those main ingredients, it still works. It's still a good movie. Like I'm with what I said before, and I think I'll always probably feel this way. It's not my favorite or, top 5, but I think this makes top 10. I think it's a lower top 10 or maybe even 15.
Sure.
But
yeah,
it may not be one of my favorites, but I get the cult following because it's so effective even without those, all the elements.
Yeah. Another thing too that kind of bothered me about this movie, and it's funny because I'm talking about a lot of stuff that bothered me, and I love this movie, is Stacy's death. Because once TP is gone from this movie, I think other than Galen Ross, Stacy's the one that kind of takes over his role, as you know what I mean, where Galen Ross's character for the longest time stayed back at camp and didn't do a whole lot. But, Tony Fish decided to go out and look, and her name's Harriet Bass, I believe. Stacy goes out and she starts to kind of take over that role. But her death, what did you think of her death when he slams her head in the hood of the car or the hood of the truck?
I thought it was actually kind of a cool little scene, to be honest. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought, like I said, I think that there's a few iconic things in this movie, or should be, in my opinion. And this is one of them. I don't remember seeing a death like this in a slasher movie that I can think of off the top of my head. It's not super graphic. You don't see a lot of blood. As a matter of fact, a lot of the kills in this movie, or quite a few of the kills in this movie, remind me of a TV movie where they cut because they probably didn't have the money to do it. But then somebody else finds the truck. I didn't really want to get that far ahead, but Bill and Ellie find the truck and they're trying to get away and it won't start. So Bill raises the hood and it shows her head inside the engine compartment, which I thought was I thought that was great. You know what I mean? You could tell they cut out some of the truck so that she could lay in there, that her head was, you know what I mean? They didn't have the money to make a latex head or anything like that. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty iconic because I can't remember a scene like this before this.
I agree, and I think that it works even better that they didn't have to make a bust. They could use the actual actress's head,
right?
Because it's obviously real. It feels more real,
right. And then Bill obviously gets it by Madman pulling him out the window of the truck while they're driving along. And the truck crashes into a tree at, I don't know, 8 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour.
She falls out of the car.
Right. I thought, man, damn.
I just kept popping at this movie. I was like, are you serious?
Right. No, I have to tell you, I remember having a truck, maybe not this old, but very similar to this, where if you leaned on it right, it would open. As a matter of fact, I was probably 10 years old. We backed out of our driveway and my mom started to move forward, so I kind of bumped the door a little bit and I fell out of the truck
Oh my God!
Onto the road, yeah, dude. So it's kind of funny. It kind of reminded me of when I was a kid. But yeah, really, they, the cars were made a little bit stronger than that back then. And I thought it was so funny that they didn't even try to hide the fact that car wasn't even going. 10 miles an hour. It's probably super fast compared to what this car was going, because there's no way, So I don't know. I thought that was kind of a hilarious thing. And she falls out, and of course she fell out onto her back and hurt her ankle, which I thought was hilarious. You know what I mean? I always thought that was funny. So,
yeah. So that woman couldn't do anything.
No, right? She jacked it all up. But I will say that the part where he's chasing her around in the cabin and stuff before he kills her. And that's the character of Ellie, played by Jan Claire. It reminded me of the new Friday the 13th game.
Yes, it totally feels like that. And I honestly think it's a really good scene up until where Ellie decides to hide.
to get
that
into the
just
fridge,
completely I was like, oh my God, like.
Yeah, you mean where she decided to hide in the fridge?
Yes.
Oh my God.
For people that haven't seen this, which I hope people have.
Yeah, me too.
She runs into the kitchen and she just, without hesitation, throws everything out of the refrigerator and climbs into the fridge and closes the door. She waits, I don't know, 10 seconds and then opens the door to see if Madman is still in the room. I was like, when I was watching it, first of all, it's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Right.
Who would hide in a refrigerator
right.
from a crazy starved madman? You would think that'd be the first place he checks. And also, I think all the food on the floor would be a big giveaway.
Right. Right.
And I love how she doesn't even, like, if I was going to do that, I would never open the door. I would just hold the door shut. So I would be like, okay, maybe he won't look in here.
Yeah. Now let me give you a little bit of background here for people who weren't alive during that time. Okay. First of all, there was a huge thing back in the 80s, where people would put refrigerators out to throw them away, right? Like on the curb, right? Mm-hmm. And kids would get inside them and die. Okay.
Wow.
Well, I'm so glad you asked, because back then refrigerators were made to seal shut hardcore.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So you could get in there, you can open up the door to get in, but you can't for some reason open it from the outside. I don't know how it worked. I don't know what the deal was, but kids were getting in there and not being able to get out, so they died. So they made a law that when you were throwing away a refrigerator like that, you had to take the door off the hinges.
Oh, man.
So that's pretty interesting. So I thought it was funny that she had no problem opening that door back up after closing it. Not to mention, when she is throwing the stuff out of the refrigerator to get in it, he's just around the corner inside the house.
Yeah.
So there's no way he didn't hear her opening the door and throwing this stuff outside. It's just so, it's so typical of a slasher movie, with the logic of everything, but it's just so funny. It's so silly that you have to go, wow, that was bad. You know what I mean? And like you said, she stayed in there for 10 seconds.
If I could remake this movie, there were a few things I would do a little bit different. First of all, the Richie character would die. And,
sure.
Of course, I said with the hot tub scene, what I would have done, what I thought would have been really cool, I had a bit of a markdom moment because I was like, I think that would have worked,
Right.
I would have had Madman use his strength to hold the refrigerator, like, with her in it. And then, like, maybe carry it outside, and then maybe he's witnessing the hot tub scene.
Oh, there you go.
Then he probably just lifts up the fridge and just through the window crushes them.
Nice.
I thought I was like, yo, I'm a genius.
Right.
I was like, that would be great if they did that, towards the end of the movie, just take out everybody, and then maybe Alexis Dubin can escape, and
right.
that there's your final girl. But
so he's got the refrigerator like over his shour.
Yeah,
he just walking off
with her in it, with the idiot rat-faced girl in it, and just throws it through the window and just like crushes TP.
That's good stuff.
And I don't know. I thought that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, man.
If I was to remake this one.
Write that down, man. Send it in.
I did actually write it down. I was like, I think that would be really good. Like, I don't know. Like, a lot of movies, I feel like never remake them. Like The Burning, I don't think it should ever. It wouldn't be as good. This movie, though, I think if you change some things, you could improve upon it. And I know the Cole fans are going to want to lynch me for saying that, but I do think there are some things that, while small, could be fixed to make this a better product.
Yeah, man. I agree. I agree. I'm with you. I don't like remakes on the usual, but man, you're right. This is one that just begs for a remake. You know what I mean? Especially because I'm a big slasher fan. I'd like to see it. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is one that could be done better. But you know what? The filmmakers nowadays probably wouldn't do a good job with it, but it definitely could be done better. I totally.
I agree with you, and at the same time, I think it could be done worse too.
Yeah,
so
right.
I understand the Cole fans saying don't, because I'm a big believer in don't remake anything, man. It's disgusting, pretty much. Like that's pretty much how I feel about most remakes. But this is one where I would give the blessing.
Sure.
I would give my blessing on a remake if it was not Eli Roth. As long as it's not Eli Roth, I'm okay.
Listen, give us a couple million and the resources to do it, and we could do it.
Dude, I
would
think we honestly could. Like, I think it would, because there were just a couple things I would change, and then everything else I would leave the same. You know, just a couple things, and then I think it would just be that much better of a movie, and I would be hoping that it would make a lot of money.
Yeah, well, with the lack of slashers out there, I think any slasher right now would make a lot of money. But anyways, one thing we forgot to talk about is Bill's death when he gets pulled out of the truck, and then Ellie falls out of the car, and she looks back, and Madman is holding Bill up over his head. I love that, man. I thought that was great. I mean, you could tell it wasn't a real person he was holding over his head, but man, I was like, with the light in the background, kind of like where it shows Madman walking through the woods with the axe. You know what I mean? As cheesy as it was, I loved that. I thought that was great. And it was. But it showed it like 10 times, and it was the same thing. It was the same shot every time that they used. They shot it one time and then used it 10 times during the movie, which I thought was hilarious too. But I love that. You know what I mean? I thought that was because they don't really do that with Jason, or I don't want to say with Jason because they did it a few times. But with the early slashers, they don't really have that that iconic
That's more, that's
silhouette.
more of a later slasher, like late, like 88, 87, 86,
right.
kind of a slasher trope. At this time, it was still very subtle. But to see something like that in a movie this early on in the genre of the slasher genre was very, really cool and kind of fresh, I think, to be honest. But so what did you think about because this is the one part I think on rewatch where I still kind of felt the same way. Mm-hmm. The ending, the climax, whatever, when it's basically after he kills Ellie, and it's down to Galen Ross.
Right.
And what did you think about how this movie kind of wrapped up like that? What would you give it, or what would you say about it?
Well, I have to say that it's not my favorite because I don't really think it goes in with the movie. And let me tell you what I mean. The character that she's playing, that Galen Ross is playing, Betsy, seemed like she was too badass. Like she I don't know. I want my final girl to be afraid, to kill out of desperation, and, you know what I mean, and to be totally outmatched. And I didn't think they did that very well in this movie. Let's just put it that way. What do you think?
I understand what you're saying. I kind of, from a standpoint of, I don't know if I even looked at Galen Ross as a badass.
Right.
But you're right. She does fight, and she does have, her gun and whatnot. But I don't know. It falls so flat to me.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it should be a lot bigger and better than it is. And I put all of that blame on Alexis Dubin.
Yeah.
I put it all on her because I think she's just so, like, she's walking around with the gun, just looking.
Right.
But there's no feel to it. There's no, like even a final girl that I'm not a big fan of, Miss Dana Kimmel from Part 3 of Friday the 13th.
Right.
Not a big fan of her. In the looks department, she's gorgeous.
Sure,
I think they got it right. I gorgeous.
I agree.
But even, I think that final chase scene where Jason is chasing her throughout, in the barn, in the middle of the road, that's great stuff, man.
Right.
That is arguably, I'd probably say that's the best, like, Friday the 13th kind of, like, chase scene, I guess, and I think her expression's really good and it feels epic, and the Manfredini music and the scene where she's in the I guess the van, and she goes onto the bridge, and it kind of weighs down the boards, and then Jason like grabs her, and then she rolls up the window, and he kind of headbutts through the glass. Like, all that stuff is just epic. This movie needed something like that, to make it feel bigger and grander. Where I think it's just kind of lame that she just, with the bus thing, and then she's in the house with the gun, and Madman's like kind of watching her for a little bit, and then he kind of just, I guess, picks her up and hangs her on a hook.
Right.
And it's not done well here. It's done much better in Texas Chainsaw, where you never see anything. It's done more effective there. I don't know. And then she kind of shoots him, and like, I don't know. I just felt like it was one of the most like blah kind of climax endings for sure, because like I'm comparing it to Friday the 13th Part 3, which was amazing, and even Part 2 with Amy Steele, and even the final chapter with Kimberly Beck, I believe her name. So like those three finales, and even the Burning finale, I thought felt a little bit bigger than this did.
Yeah, I think that talking about Friday 3, don't you think the ending owes a lot to the late Richard Brooker? I thought he was really good.
Absolutely. But I'm saying, I think Dana Kimmel, even though I didn't think she was good in the first maybe half or 3/4 of it, I think she did her part towards the end. I think Alexis Dubin does not do her part towards this end of this movie. But I think Paul Ehlers does. I don't think Paul Ehlers does a bad job. I think it's solely I put the blame on her.
Yeah. It seems like with Dana Kimmel, she starts at one point, but she goes up at the end, and for Galen Ross, it's just kind of a flat line, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, it's completely flat line. I don't see any upside to her or anything. But I agree with you, man. Richard Brooker, may he rest in peace. Man. That guy is fantastic. Probably my second or third favorite Jason. I love Richard Brooker.
Yeah, he's. I mean, listen, I love Kane Hodder. I'm a total fan of Kane Hodder's because I love the guy. But Brooker's the best Jason, in my opinion. That's how I feel.
That's interesting. Yeah. It's funny. I would actually probably go with Ted White.
Yeah, and listen, Ted White's really good. Ted White's
absolutely.
Really
I would go. I think Ted White, then Richard Brooker, then Kane Hodder. Yeah. And I know a lot of people will be like, "You're nuts," but no, I'll be honest. Like, and it's not that Kane Hodder is not the champion of that role, which he is. It's just the fact that the other two were just so good too, man. Yeah. It's truly just 3 A+, and I just personally, I think because I like Part 3 and Part 4 better than Part 7, Part 8.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think that's maybe why they hold a little bit better of a place in my heart.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And like I said, Kane, I didn't know Richard Brooker. I do know Ted White. I mean, I don't know him, but you know what I mean. But Kane's just such a great guy. It's hard to not like. You know what I mean?
I've never heard a bad word about Kane Hodder. He's honestly he seems like the coolest dude ever.
Have you ever met him?
No, unfortunately, I haven't. He's never done a convention by me, which is weird because he does 101 conventions. It seems like. But he's never done the one in Philly, which is the one I go to.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance, you got. I mean, because he's the kind of guy who he'll have a line of people and he'll still talk to you for 10 or 15 minutes. You know what I mean? So that and it's he'll talk to you about Friday the 13th and stuff, but he'll ask you what you're into and what's going on with you, which is just makes him much cooler.
That's where that "don't meet your heroes" thing kind of loses its
right.
While it's effective with Miss Dubin, it's not with awesome class acts like a man's man like Kane Hodder is. So I mean that's just one of those things. But yeah, I'll meet him one day. I want to meet Danielle Harris one day as well. Yeah. I think she was doing. I think she's going to be up in Maryland soon, or it just passed or something for Monster Mania. But I was going to go to that, but I had work and I was not going to call in sick. Yeah. But I'll eventually meet her and Mr. Hodder. I want to meet Danielle Harris a lot.
Yeah, I met Danielle. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at a picture with my 3 boys and me and her. And my youngest son is probably 7 or so in this picture, and he's almost as big as she is. She's just a tiny little thing. And still, super, super, obviously, I don't know if you find her attractive, but she's super, super cute.
10 out of 10.
Also, have you ever met Amy Steele?
I have not met Amy Steele.
Man,
Amy Steele, I met Steve Dash. I've never met Amy Steele, no.
Another still just really, really a good-looking woman. Really a good-looking woman. And such a sweetheart.
I've seen her interviews. I know they did like a reunion of the Friday girls. It was like Adrian King, Amy Steele, Dana Kimmel, and I believe Kimberly Beck. And I thought Kimberly Beck looked terrible, and I thought Dana Kimmel looked a little bit worse for wear, but I thought Amy Steele and Adrian King, which was weirder because they were from the older two,
right,
which granted only by a couple years. I thought they aged way better than the other two did.
Yeah, one of the cool things,
especially Adrian King.
Yeah, oh yeah, I've met Adrian. I've actually had dinner with Adrian King and did an interview. That was I freaked out a little bit there. But one of the
you should have like drew a picture of her like Bill, not Bill. What's the guy's name?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
How many times have we seen Friday the 13th too? This is just horrible. But we don't know the guy's name.
I'm drawing a blank. Yeah,
the guy that goes to the diner.
Oh my God,
Mr.
Christie. Steve Christie. Yeah, jeez.
Man, we almost lost credibility there.
I know, right? Sorry, fans. I was going to tell you something. This is kind of a weird thing, but I got to bring it up. The convention that Horror Hound is having here in Columbus on November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, or something like that, which is just a couple miles from my house. Not to brag or anything, but it's right next to my house.
No, that's awesome. You don't have to fucking travel like I do.
I know,
but
right?
I go to the con in Cherry Hill. It's a 3.5 hour ride. Easy, man.
Is that New Jersey?
Yeah, it's pretty much on the outskirts of Philly, though. Like, you could literally walk a few blocks, and it feels like you're in Philadelphia.
But they should just build a bridge from where you're at to Jersey, shouldn't they?
Well,
don't you have to
that come pick me up, but it doesn't work that way.
Right. Oh, geez. Anyways, I was going to tell you that one of the people that I saw is going to be there is pretty cool, and I think you'll understand exactly why. But it's Debbie Sue Voorhees.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, she's gonna be there, which, I mean, I don't know anybody who watches Friday the 13th knows she has the biggest set of hooters ever.
Greatest titties of all time.
So I don't know why I'm excited, because she's probably like 68 years old or something like that. But it'll be pretty cool. It'll be pretty cool to meet her. I'm sure she's not going to show them to me.
I would love if you went up and told her that, like, hey, man, I was in love with you in '85, but man, you're 68 now. Like, what the fuck? It would be so funny if you just went up to her with the biggest backhanded compliment. Like, that'd be the funniest.
You were
thing ever.
So hot in 1985. What happened?
You know what's amazing is, do you know the whole story with? We're getting off tangent here, but it's a slasher so why the hell not?
That's right. That's right.
Friday the 13th girls. She was not originally going to be in that part. They were going to I forget the girl's name for part 6. She's in part 6, and she's in like the van with or the RV, I guess, with the other character who gets stabbed, and she gets her face put through the bathroom wall.
Right. Oh, okay.
I'm looking up the actress' name right now, so have no fear. I'm going to find it.
I can't remember which one it is. Is it Carrie Noonan, Renee Jones, Darcy DeMoss?
Yes, that's it. Darcy DeMoss. Okay. Darcy DeMoss was originally cast in that role.
Really?
To play the Debbie Sue Voorhees character.
Interesting.
And Debbie Sue came in like the last day and was like, hey, is there any more spots left? And they were like, oh, no. And they looked down at her resume, and they read that her last name was Voorhees.
Oh, no way.
And they looked at her, and then they obviously saw her tremendous assets, and they said, you know what? We're gonna find a spot for you. And they ended up giving Darcy DeMoss, I guess, the script for the next movie, or they told her, we're going to use you in the next movie.
Right.
And Debbie Sue Voorhees came in and got the role. I'm pretty sure that's how it happened. I'm pretty sure that was the story on the Camp Crystal Lake Memories DVD or Blu-ray, which is absolute must-watch for any slasher fan.
Absolutely.
Probably my favorite horror documentary of all time.
I mean, was it like 6 hours or something?
It's 12 and a half. Actually.
Is that what it is? I mean, I've watched the whole thing.
It's 6 hours each disc.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Or so.
But yeah, man. Anybody who hasn't checked that out, if you're even a remote Friday the 13th fan, that's the shit. I mean, it don't get any better than that for horror movies. No way.
Yeah, and they go in depth on each.
Right.
Like they spend a half hour on part 8.
Right.
They spend they spend an hour in the original, probably 45 minutes on parts 2 through 4, and then like part 5 and on is like probably a half hour, maybe give or take 5 minutes or so.
Right.
But they're so in depth, man. I didn't like that they kind of did shit on part 5 though.
I know. Well, yeah, because we're both fans of,
huge fans. That's a perfect slasher movie. Like I don't get Part 4 and Part 5, I don't think you can really top those two in the slasher department. Like, those are two of my favorite movies in the slasher world.
Yeah, kind of feel the same way about Halloween 3. You know, it gets crapped on a lot just for one particular, for not having Michael Myers in it. But, and I remember, I hated it at first too, because but it grows on you after a while. You really have to realize that they're Part 5 of Friday the 13th and Part 3 of Halloween are really, really, really good movies.
Yeah, even with Part 5, like, I named my car after Reggie the Reckless.
Nice.
Like, the car I drive, I go, "What's up, Reckless?"
Nice.
And my car is Reggie. Like, my friends know it as Reggie the Reckless,
Yeah,
and they haven't even seen the movie, So and Demon and Ooh Baby,
oh yeah,
baby. Man, that's a perfect movie. I don't care what anybody says, man. Another movie that Dead Pit kind of turned me on to and warmed me up to. I mean, I always liked it, but they made me see how great it was.
Yep.
And.
Yeah.
That's kind of the magic of them. But let's come full circle with this.
Sure.
If you had to, we'll get into the very end of Madman. Probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite parts of the film, is the final song in the movie.
Oh yeah.
So what are your memories of that? Because I think it's just goddamn so awesome.
Yeah. I think it's a great song. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to look up who did it. I don't know if it was the guy who did,
I think it was TP or maybe it was Richie. I don't know. I think it was TP.
One of those guys. Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think it works well. I wish more movies would have done something like this. Don't you?
Yeah, My Bloody Valentine kind of has one, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's not as
good. It's not as catchy.
Yeah, but yeah, it does. But most movies, like, you really can't fault like Friday the 13th. I mean, Manfredini's music, in my opinion, is the best. It's the best soundtrack to a slasher movie. I mean, bar none. I mean, by far. Maybe one of the best horror soundtracks, in my opinion. It's just so, to me, it's so iconic. And everybody has to know I'm a huge Friday the 13th fan, so that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, I love this. I've on the soundtrack they have the song, or on the soundtrack on the Blu-ray they have the song, and I think I listened to it like 3 or 4 times in a row. You know what I mean? That's how much I liked it. You know what I mean? And I think it goes well in this movie, and it could have been in better movies, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree with that, but I do think it elevates this movie because I really don't like the climatic, like the scene with Galen Ross and him in the house. Like, I think that completely
let down.
Will always fall flat with me. I think it's such a bad ending. I'm like, but people say that about The Burning. People really hate that scene in the barn, which I don't know. I don't really agree with. I think it's kind of a good little ending. I don't think it's spectacular as Dana Kimmel jumping out of goddamn cabins and whatnot, but or throwing bookshelves on Jason, or he throws the knife at her, just misses. But what else is really? But it's I don't know. I just think it elevates this movie another step. Like, I remember the first time I saw this, even though I was scratching my head, I went, that ending song leaves its mark. It's very effective, and I think it's another movie that kind of sets up a sequel that never happened.
Yeah. Hey, let me go ahead. I'm gonna see. I think I have the song here. I think I'm gonna go ahead and play it. See if it's the song. I don't know if it's like the theme music or that song in particular. Let's see what it is. No, I don't think this is going to be it. Sorry.
No, I think it is. That is it.
Oh, it is? Oh. Yeah. This is the very end. Okay, cool.
Lore of the campfire, telling of his horror, lost in the woods with the madman and the stars. Don't laugh at the tales, heed if you call him the legend lives. Beware the madman Mars. The legend lives. Beware the madman Mars.
Anyways, you kind of get an idea about the song. I'm sure people would want to hear the whole thing. So go out there and check it
out. To me, that's just that screams classic horror movie.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And it's not like it's a spectacular piece of musical art. It just really, really works. You know what I mean?
Simple but effective.
Right.
And that's what slasher movies are.
Right. And speaking of My Bloody Valentine, it's The Ballad of Harry Warden is the name of the song. So.
Yeah, but I don't know. I always thought that was a little too much, kind of. Whereas this was just, it was simple. Like it was perfect. I thought this was one of the better, like, final kind of. I remember when I turned it off, I kind of was like, oh, I while I wasn't the biggest fan, I was like, that last song, man. It kept me thinking. I was like, man, did I miss something?
Right.
It makes you want to come back to the movie, and eventually, over time, I've kind of warmed up to it.
Yeah.
I think. And also, I love the ending credit sequence and the opening with the kind of outlook of this red background and these two trees, and then this space in the middle for the credits.
Yeah,
I love it because it's black and red, which are my two favorite. Like anybody who knows me and what I wear, almost everything I own is black and red. Like I have a Suspiria jacket, it's black and red.
Oh, yeah.
The Evil Dead jacket's black and red. Hills of Eyes t-shirts. Halloween t-shirt, they're all black and red. That's like my favorite color scheme, those two colors. I don't know why, but it always has been, kind of always will be. And I don't know, I really like that. I think that's another, it just adds upon the layers of atmosphere. But what would you rank this one? And I guess we'll go back to last week too. We didn't rank The Burning. What would you rank this movie, the Madman, out of 10?
Oh, wow. I would have to give it, I would say, for me personally, it's probably maybe a 6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
I mean, as a movie itself, I would probably say it's probably just a 5. But for me, it's probably a 6.5 or 7.
Yeah, there are things that elevate this movie past that, average slasher movie to make it an above average slasher movie. I would go, I think I'd go with this one. I think I'd agree with you. I'd say 6.5. And I think with The Burning, I'd go 8.
Yeah, The Burning is probably, I don't have a problem giving it an 8. I think it depends on the day. Sometimes I'd say, maybe a 7.5. But yeah, I mean, 8, I don't have a problem saying 8. I just think that these movies, both of them, they're both, Burning's much more known than Madman, but I think both of these movies have a place. You know what I mean? They have a place in the history of the slasher film that's above the average movie. Don't you think?
Yeah, what would you? Which of these two movies would you say has a bigger fan base?
Oh man, I got to say The Burning. I had to say The Burning. Now I do say that the fans who love this movie, Madman,
love it.
Yeah, they may be a little more hardcore fans, but The Burning probably has a bigger following. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard to not when it's when it's Miramax and the Weinsteins. But it's not like, I guess it's not like they push it or anything like that. But yeah, with Savini's effects and with
that's why it's really because
the cast has a little bit better cast.
We talk about The Prowler. The reason we talk about The Burning. The reason we talk about all these movies is because of Tom Savini. Right. So I think he really elevates that movie at above where I would say a 7. I think he gives it a whole nother to the 8. Yep,
I agree. I totally agree. But yeah, both of these movies, you just can't help but love. Now, one of the things I wanted to bring up is that we got a request from a fan, and his name is Ryan Snyder. He recommended that we do Sleepaway Camp. And obviously, I know you prefer the latter films, but since we're in the slasher-sewed mode, hey, that rhymed, I figured maybe we do that. Maybe we do that on the next episode. What do you think?
Oh, I'm totally game for that. We could, we could do all 3. Actually, excluding Return to Sleepaway Camp. That I can't do.
Actually, yeah, let's do that. Let's do all 3 of those.
Do you want to do 3 separate episodes? Do you want to do all 3 in one?
Well, I don't know. What do you? I mean, I know you're a huge mark for the last 2. Do you want to make them their own episodes?
Split them up then. I mean, that would set the next month up for. We can talk about that. We don't have to make that decision yet.
But our next episode will be the original. Sound
yes, good? Yes, yeah, without a doubt. Whether we include 2 and 3 with it, we'll definitely, the next episode will be the original. And is he on our Facebook page? I wasn't sure if.
No, but I sent him. He sent me another message back, and I let him know to check it out. So I'm not
cool,
sure.
okay.
Yeah, not sure if he is. But listen, fans, anybody who listens to this show, just give us recommendations. Let us know what your favorites are, man. We'll talk about them. We're easy. We have so much to talk about that your recommendation could very well make it to the very next show, just like his. So obviously it's FHM podcast at gmail.com. You can check us out on Facebook or Instagram, at Flashback Horror on Twitter. Check us out on there. Like I said, we respond. So, we'll talk about what you guys want us to talk about. So, anything else you got going on, man? I know you got a weekend coming up. You got anything fun going on?
No, not really. My whole family's going to a wedding today, but me, I'm not invited. It was one of my sister's friends.
They said bring everybody but that crazy John.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. So I'm just kind of, I'll probably hang out with some friends tonight, just hang out. Nice. But I don't know. I'm thinking maybe I'll pop in a horror movie during the middle of the day.
There you go.
Maybe I'll pop in. I'm feeling a Fulci. I don't know. Towards late September, early October, I get in the mood to watch House by the Cemetery.
Oh, nice.
One of my probably my all-time favorite Fulci movie, which a lot of people would scratch their head. But yeah, that's my favorite Fulci movie for sure.
How can you not love Bob?
Oh my God! How could you love Bob?
Right.
Oh my gosh! But yeah, that's actually on my number 15 on my top 20 horror movies.
Well,
it's House by the Cemetery.
I'm really looking forward to talking about some of those films because we haven't talked any Fulci at all. You know what I mean? So House by the Cemetery, City of the Living Dead, The Beyond. I'm so stoked to talk about those movies. I love those films, and I
only talked them in October since Halloween's coming around. House by the Cemetery is a movie that it screams September, October.
Yeah.
Watch it.
Yep, I totally agree. So so cool. We got that to look forward to, and you guys have that to look forward to. Us talking about it. So definitely stay tuned. We got some cool things coming up. So, all right, brother. Well, I hope you have a good weekend, and I will catch you next Friday to talk about Sleepaway Camp.
Sounds great, bro. Angelo awaits.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
Peace.
Peace.